Hey, this is Hans from Requests for Music, and this is the latest module. It's Metlz, and Metlz I've already used it in an improvisation that I've put online. But Metlz is a physically inspired metal percussion module for Voltage Modular, and there are no samples in there. So instead of playing samples, it's generating sound from resonant structures like plates and bars and bells and all kinds of metal objects, each reacting differently to where and how you strike them. So that means that the complete screen or the complete canvas is your strike area wherever you click. So at the core, Metals is not just a sound source, it's a service. Every sound starts with an impact, and that impact needs a position. So when you hit or wherever you hit the object changes the tone, the harmonics, and even the stereo image. So you're not just triggering sounds, you're interacting with with a virtual piece of metal. So there's all kinds of different metal models. So like plates and bars and bells and more complex object. Each model has its own resonance structures, so a hit produces a completely different spectrum, and some are tight and percussive, and others, yeah, they take longer to evolve. So you have evolving metallic textures, and like for instance, this is the triangle, and you already hear that there are differences in wherever I hit this. And a next type, for instance, would be a crotalis or a cowbell. And if I go on, even a gong. So the excitation, the way how you excite or how you trigger the sound, it defines how the sound starts. So you can go from sharp and percussive hits or make it even softer or whatever. So this shapes the transient, the way that it starts coming up, and that's where a lot of the character from the sound comes from. So in the excitation you have sort of the mallet or to stick and stick to metal and all that. It behaves different. So apart from that, there's a hit position. So there's a hit X and a hit Y, but actually you can change that by just placing your cursor somewhere. So if you just want it for live performance or something, you can just hit it wherever and you'll hear that the sound changes. So the X and Y controls where the object is struck, and that changes the harmonic balance and also the stereo placement. So hit more to the left and the sound leans to the left. Hit near the edge and tone becomes thinner and sometimes more complex. And so wherever you hit, indeed gives you different sounds. Of course, there's options to shape the sound. So you have things like the decay and the character. So decay is here on the side. The character, the impact, which is actually the amount of hits. So if I put this up, I get a louder sound, but that depends on the instrument. And the width, where you actually change how wide that sound goes. So there's not an EQ or something in there. It's really that you influence the energy going through the metal. So small changes can really transform the behavior of whatever you can do. And of course, there are some modulation inputs in here, so assignable as usual. So all of those parameters that are visible here can be changed and can be driven by control voltage. So you could change those hit positions by using LFOs, for instance. So if I put my LFO in here and I change this to the hit X, you'll see that it changes. So, and obviously this is combined with the original values. So if I put this in the middle, you have that full range, and otherwise put some attenuator in between the LFO signal and whatever you put in here. So if I take the other one and put that into my hit Y, for instance, you get this kind of behavior depending on where your hit Y started, and the speed difference, of course, between those. So if I would also use a gate from somewhere, then obviously I would hear that difference. So that makes it, you can really make it more live. Well, you can use metals for tight percussion, metallic hits, long textures, long shimmering textures, like the gong again. So if I take this out and I'll put this, well, first let's hear the bell, for instance, which is also there. If I click a second time, the first doesn't cut off, so you'll actually hear that second sound through it. So anyway, Metlz is not about playing samples, it's about interacting with everything. And so as said, you have all of these types. So I have, beginning with the smallest sound, because it's also building up. I have triangles, crotales, cowbell, glockenspiel, tubular bells, handbell, bell tree, plate, anvil, and break, which are shorter sounds, especially when you place the decay shorter, of course. Industrial sounds, and then the church bell and the gong, which sounds different. And again, the impact really changes how the sound is, and apart from that, things like the character and all that kind of stuff. Lastly, there's a separate tree input here, which means that if I connect that instead of the normal gate, and I would go back to my tree, for instance, it's actually dependent on a couple of button or knobs here. I have the speed, I have the tree count, how many there are, and a random sound. So if I push it once, it's going to create an up or a rising pitch, depending on the speed here. So I could do something like that, and you can hear that there's internally 4 notes that sound, and then it starts stealing from the first that we're sounding, so something like that. So take the count all the way up, take the speed a bit down, and put it into random. Then it's doing stuff like that, depending on how far random goes. You can have sounds like that, and then play with the decay, play with the tuning perhaps. So stuff like that. So there's a whole lot of things that you can do with metal-y kind of sounds. So anyway, it's in the store right now. So I hope you enjoy it, and I hope you give it a chance, give it a demo, or try the demo, and I'll see you back in a new one. So cheers for now. Bye bye.